Are you rolling? Yep. All right. Doug?
Dave?
Glenn? Mike?
Thank you for having me.
Jim, thanks very much for being in the circle with us today.
What are your key leadership tenets, and how has it evolved during these years that you've had the job?
Probably the biggest driver of the evolution has been size of business. You know, our business is, 4 times bigger now than when I took over. I was much more heavy coach, but still a player. In the early days, I did not have a COO. I was the acting COO, operator, and CEO. That would not work today. I couldn't possibly do that anymore. Meaning it's just too complicated. We're in 170 countries. We have 16 operating businesses. So it's much more understanding how do you have the right teams and the right combination of people over the businesses. How do you agree on what the objectives are and let them figure out how to get it done? So it's a much different, I would say, leadership environment than when I took over.
As I think about my own career and about leadership, I've always enjoyed the phrase, man plans and God laughs. And meaning you can plan all you want, but some of it is circumstance, but I think a lot of it is being in the right place at the right time, but preparing yourself for that success, again, through hard work, through the relationships that you build. But I didn't set out and say, I want to be CEO somewhere, and some people do.
Leadership is calling on people to be their own best selves. And what I've noticed over the years is that is a great way to lead. It's a way to lead at every level of this organization. So in many ways, that's what we're trying to do with our students. We're trying to say to our students, you can be your own best self, and that means getting a good education and so forth. But I think inside of an organization, when you've got staff, it's also saying to the staff, we don't really believe the idea that there's one singular leader who has all the answers. Barack Obama talked a little bit about this too when he said, we are the ones we've been waiting for. The philosophy behind it that there's room for almost everybody to lead.
I had a couple of people that I had worked with then that I knew they weren't cutting the mustard at the time that we were peers. Now you have to deal with them working for you and knowing really how they work instead of how they, would portray themselves. And I think one of the really important lessons I learned then was cut the losses early. I don't know, it wasn't about the friendship, it was about the job he was or was not doing. And that actually garnered a reputation for me within the company at that time of being tougher than I really was, but I was willing to take on what was perceived to be a very tough thing of letting somebody go that wasn't cutting it, but was also a friend.
What doesn't work as a leader is pretty simple. You can't force a square peg into a round hole. So you have to lead people based on their abilities, their skills. You challenge them. You try to get them out of their comfort zone, all the while knowing there are certain things people can't do. And knowing that about myself has helped me watch the teams that I lead and realize when maybe I've got somebody in the wrong role, somebody in the right role, somebody is floundering, not because they're failing to try, but because they're in the wrong role.
How you handle your mistakes matters too. Are you forthright? Do you own up? Do you learn something? Do you move on? Do you try to hide it? What do you try to do? As I say here, I want bad news moving at lightning speed. If you have good news, send me a letter.
Surround yourself with the best you can find. My view was always try to hire people that I felt could replace me and put them in the key roles and let them go and see how far they can run.
I don't have a lot of sort of highfalutin management philosophies. I believe in fairness. I believe in giving everybody a chance. I believe in listening. I believe in inclusiveness. So those are, your pretty basic management philosophies, but I'm not one to adopt a lot of fancy, business philosophy, if you would.
I think authenticity is really an important quality of leadership. I think the distance between your beliefs, your words, and your actions, you've got to keep those tight, that people watch very carefully. What do you say? And what does it say about your belief system? But then what do you do? Does it reinforce what you've said and what you say you believe in? And so I think that authenticity and transparency. I work very hard to be available and accessible to those that I lead, having a personal relationship with them, knowing them as individuals, knowing them personally. I mean, we think about all the time you spend in a traditional 9-to-5 job, if you will. And I think I want to know who I'm working with, what makes you tick.
The other thing that doesn't work as a leader is, at least for me, is trying to scare people into doing what you need them to do.
If you have to resort to power, you know you've sort of lost the argument. So if I have to say no a bunch sitting in my job today, I have to ask myself, what is it that I'm doing that's creating an environment where people are coming up with ideas that are not on strategy or don't make sense financially or something else? I mean, it's an environment I'm creating, and I've got to understand what I have to do to recreate the environment we want.
One of the qualities of an effective leader is resilience. And it's, you know, when you're in a CEO job, things come at you unexpectedly. And I think what you've got to do is rely on your family, your faith, your friends to find that resilience. It's a tool you've got to have. You've got to pick yourself up. There's nobody feeling sorry for you. You've got a board of directors, but you're not in touch with them every day. And you often read and hear that it's a lonely job. You sometimes only have yourself. But I think if you have a strong leadership team, people you rely on for advice, that's how you get through difficult times.
A big part of the way I think about leadership is trying to find people, especially inside of the organization, and say, you're in charge. You've got to do your part. It's calling on people to be their own best self, but it's also making sure they have the tools and the training they need, and then the accountability.
Behind you, Paul, is a picture, a sketch, an artist's sketch of me giving an opening statement in a case in 1991. I was, barely 30 years old. And it was a big case, which is why there's an artist sketch. That's from CBS News. It was on the front page of the New York Times. It was the biggest case going on at the time, and we went down in flames. And it was both my best experience and my worst experience, because there I was as a young prosecutor, in the highest profile case. I was proud of the work that I did, and there I was on the front page of the paper going down in flames. And I keep that on my wall every office that I work at, because I want my teams to know I went down in flames in a public way. People see that and they think I'm excited about the fact that I had this sketch and there I am giving an opening statement in a high-profile case. It's actually the opposite. It's a reminder of how quickly you can go down the tubes. Be proud of your work, be proud of yourself, work hard. We all fail, we all make mistakes, and rally together and do the best you can. That's the way I lead.